those who were first elected on May the 8th, 1986. One of our guests in the gallery today is the last surviving member of the United Farmers of Alberta government.
Let us pray. As Canadians and as Albertans, we give thanks for the precious gifts of freedom and peace which we enjoy. As members of this Legislative Assembly, we rededicate ourselves to the valued traditions of parliamentary democracy as a means of serving both our province and our country. Amen.
Introduction of visitors, presenting petitions, reading and receiving petitions, presenting reports by standing and special committees, notices of motions, introduction of bills, tabling returns and reports.
Honorable the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the honourable member for Jasper Place filed a letter which he wrote to me. I've now been able to see the letter, and I'm filing my reply.
Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to file the report of the Funeral Services Working Committee on the Funeral Services business, designed with recommendations designed to ensure an honest and fair marketplace. As well included is a news release and a questionnaire that will go to the funeral services business and consumers interested in the topic.
And their customers. Minister of Public Works, Supply and Services.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to table two reports today. The first is the annual report 1990 of the Alberta Association of Architects, and the second is Gas Alberta Operating Fund, the report of the fund operations for the year ending March 31, 1990.
Minister of the Environment.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to file with the Legislative Library copies of the National Management Plan for Nitrogen Oxides and Volatile Organic Compounds and the summary report of that plan. Mr. Speaker, these documents were released yesterday in conjunction with the Canadian Council of Ministers of the Environment semi-annual meeting in Halifax. Also, I would like to file the motion for return 298. Thank you.
Minister of Education.
Mr. Speaker, in the interest of providing full and complete information to all members of the Assembly, I'm tabling today response to written question number 276. As well, Mr. Speaker, I am tabling three reports. One is an update on teacher supply and demand in Alberta, 1990-91, a series of questions and answers on a subject that has been of some interest to all members on year-round education, and two different reports related to the Special Education Review, one dated May of 1990 and another dated January of 1991.
Introduction of special guests.
Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce to you and through you to members of the Assembly approximately 140 students from our neighboring province of Saskatchewan. The Jubilee School from Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan, normally every second year comes to visit our legislature. They're split into two groups at the moment, one group on tour, the other group is located mostly in the members' gallery. I'd like to present to you, first of all, 70 students from Jubilee School, Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan, accompanied by teachers Ms. Senga, Mrs. Telly, Mrs. Bucko, Mr. R., bus driver Mrs. Rhonda Matheson, Mr. Keith Flanagan, and Mr. Arnold Grover. And I'd request for permission to present the other half at the end of question period. I'd ask to raise in the gallery and receive the welcome of the Assembly.
and Meadowlark, followed by the Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce to you and through you to members of the legislature 12 members of the Friends of the West Country. They are here today with the president of the group, Friends of the West Country, Mr. Henry Collins. They are here requesting that the proposed Sun Pine Wood Treatment Plant receive a proper environmental impact assessment. I would ask that they rise in the gallery and receive the welcome of the members of the Legislative Assembly.
Minister of Education, followed by Drayton Valley.
Mr. Speaker, as a proud member of the class of 1986, it's an honor for me today to have a friend and a colleague in the members gallery. Mrs. Uta Davies is a constituent in the Calgary-Shaw constituency, serves on the Social Care Facilities Review Committee for our government, and I'd ask her to stand and receive a very warm welcome from all members of the Assembly.
Drayton Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my privilege on behalf of my colleague from Highwood to introduce 37 bright students from the Cayley School, and they're seated in your public gallery, Mr. Speaker, and they're accompanied today by Mr. Nugent and Mr. Brazier, teachers, and parents Mrs. Bates, Mrs. Ellis, Mrs. Ponsack, Mr. Eaglesham, Mr. Brownridge, and Mrs. Young. I would ask that they stand and receive the cordial welcome of this House.
Minister of Culture, Multiculturalism.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to introduce some out-of-town guests as well. A couple who are here, most vitally interested in the workings of the Alberta legislature and its goings-on. They're also vitally interested in finding out what their son does for part of his workday. I'd like my parents, Claude and Lillian Main from Victoria, BC, to stand up and receive a warm welcome of the Assembly.
Honorable members, it's only fitting that today we should congratulate 32 of you on the 5th anniversary of your election, May the 8th, 1986.
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
Speaker, to the Premier. Mr. Speaker, every so often an issue arises that rolls everything that's wrong with this conservative government into one big ball. It's unfairness, paranoid secrecy, its lack of understanding about ethics, and its secret deals with its friends.
Right.
Mr. Speaker, 2 years ago, the Premier bought land to build his house in Stettler from the McDonalds, the family who we now understand are good friends of the Premier. At that time, Mrs. McDonald and her family were fortunate enough to hold the government contract to maintain the Rochon Sands public campground just down the road from the Premier's house. Funny enough, Mr. Speaker, we now hear charges from the former park manager, as well as another local Stettler couple, that the McDonalds have won renewal of the contract without allowing these other people the opportunity to offer competitive bids. In other words, that the contract has been awarded without tender. My question to the Premier, since the Premier's own constituents can't seem to get the Premier to answer the question, I'll ask it for them. Will the Premier confirm that this contract has been awarded to his friends without tender?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure if I follow the honourable member's question. I believe he's talking about a contract that was awarded to somebody before I ever knew the person, and that person has continued on to have a contract with the government. I would never get involved in those matters. It must be the Minister of Forestry, or Minister of Parks and Recreation, and I ask him to deal with the matter.
Recreation and Parks.
Mr. Speaker, we do have a contract at Rochon Sands, and the contract people there have done an excellent job. And as part of the policy of Recreation and Parks, we look at the individual people who have the contracts, and if they have done a good job, they have first option to the next contract that goes forward. We have some 300-plus contracts in the province, and we have 8 provincial parks that are privatized at the present time. We will be looking at 8 more parks this year to privatize, and that is consistent with our policy as it relates to our contracts.
Just coincidences,
Yeah,
Mr.
sure.
Speaker, just coincidences, Mr. Speaker. And for the Premier to say he doesn't know anything about it, I mean, that's
Nonsense.
ridiculous. Mr. Speaker, but I'll go to the minister he wants to shuffle it on to, Mr. Speaker. The minister refuses to provide any details whatsoever about this public contract, paid with public money, awarded to the McDonald's, saying this is private information. What nonsense, Mr. Speaker.
Right.
Since the McDonald's have received $40,000 in government grants and are receiving public money to run a public campground through a public contract, why won't the minister make this contract public? What has he got to hide?
Right.
Mr. Speaker, the individuals running this campground have received no grants through Recreation and Parks that may, and their contract, again, as I repeat, is consistent with the policy of Recreation and Parks in the extension of contracts throughout this province.
Well, Mr. Speaker, back to the Premier, we're talking about a more general way. Mr. Speaker, at the same time that the McDonald's are maintaining the Roshan Sands public campground, they're also operating their own private campsite called Old McDonald's RV Resort just a couple of miles away. Funny enough, Mr. Speaker, the attendance at Roshan Sands is dropping, but the attendance at the McDonald's campsite is rising, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure it's just a coincidence.
Yeah.
Will the Premier tell us if he thinks there's any problem at all with this apparent conflict of interest, and if not, why not?
What nonsense.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to come back to his question at the beginning. The gentleman, or the family, had this contract, I gather, before I ever met them, and that they've fulfilled the responsibilities that Parks and Recreation have asked them to, and Parks and Recreation have continued their contract because of that. I don't know what the honourable member is trying to get at, but I suggest that he is the leader of a party in this province that has had some history of having some pride in their leaders, and would he get up out of the gutter on this matter?
No. Order. 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 Before the second question proceeds, members do need to refer to Beauchene 410, subsection 16. Thank you. Second main question, Leader of the Opposition.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Technology, Research and Telecommunications. Mr. Speaker, yesterday we revealed that Novotel made a $43.3 million payment to the TELUS Corporation on January the 17th and asked the minister why he never revealed this at the time. The minister responded with some mumble-jumble about cash flow or something or other, and also by saying, and I quote, this loan repayment didn't cost taxpayers a cent. Today, Mr. Speaker, Novatel's Vice President and Chief Controlling Officer directly contradicted the minister by indicating that this $43 million was repaid with $131 million the government paid to Novotel to cover its 1990 second half losses, Mr. Speaker. It can't be both ways. And my question to the minister is to explain why he said that this repayment didn't cost the taxpayers a cent when Novatel's chief controller says it was made from taxpayers' money contributed in March.
Mr. Speaker, the reason why I said that, and it's certainly true, is that the advances were made by TELUS Corporation, a company, a public corporation acting in the private sector, advanced monies after the privatization to Novotel, and Novotel merely returned TELUS's monies back to them. That does not cost, in the bottom line, the taxpayer.
Mr. Speaker, I guess we want to know who owns this company then. If they hand out $43 million, that's not a loss to the taxpayers of Alberta? Let's get serious about this, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Who owns the question?
Mr. Speaker, no, it isn't.
Speaker, I'd sure hate to have this man running my personal finances, Mr. Speaker. We'd be in a lot of trouble, Mr. Speaker. But if the minister, let me just ask this question then. Yes. Because we get different conflicting statements from this minister, from this department, from Novotel, from TELUS, and from the Auditor General. Will the minister now come clean and put his money where his mouth is and lay out the financial statements of Novotel? He has them, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, we will indeed table the financial statements, the audited financial statements of Novotel, as soon as they have had an opportunity to be reviewed. and we will do so as we've always tabled and been forthcoming with respect to the information on Novotel, just as we did with respect to the losses when they came forward. And as to me looking after, Mr. Speaker, the honorable leader's finances, the gentleman opposite cannot even get his own party out of debt. I don't know where he would take the leadership.
Having a bad day. Edmonton, Glengarry. Edmonton, Glengarry, MP. Order, please. Leader of the Liberal Party.
Speaker, Albertans are interested in openness and fairness, particularly in the awarding of contracts. And I want to pursue an issue that was raised by the Leader of the Opposition. My questions are to the Minister responsible for Parks and Recreation. Mr. Speaker, this is a $67,000 contract that was awarded by the province of Alberta to the McDonald entrepreneur without public notice, without any kind of public advertising, no tendering process that was open as it usually is. This isn't a matter of giving or extending a contract. This is the original contract that I'm talking about. Mr. Speaker, other Albertans were interested in tendering on this project. $67,000 for that, $53,500 in special grants to the McDonald RV Park. My question to the Minister is this. Given that it is a policy to advertise and to publicly tender, and given that this policy is a good policy because it ensures value for the taxpayer's dollar, will the Minister tell this Assembly why that policy was breached and ignored and a contract was awarded without the usual publication and public tendering that usually goes with contracts?
Mr. Speaker, two things to the answer to that question. One, there was no grant given in respect to the contracts given to Roshan Sands from Recreation and Parks. And any insinuation must be directed some other location than on this question to Recreation and Parks. Number two, to answer his second part, the procedures that are normally put in place for Recreation and Parks in follow-through with their contracts and issuing contracts was done so in this case.
Mr. Speaker, given that the department has advertised within the Stettler constituency for maintenance contracts in other parks, but not this particular one, I want to know why this one was excluded and a separate secret deal was made with the McDonald family. Why was that the case?
Mr. Speaker, I will repeat once again in reference to this question. Throughout this province, we have a policy as it relates to contracts given out in provincial parks. And when the contractor is doing an excellent job, we follow through with first option on the renewal of those contracts. And that has been done in consistency throughout this province. There is nothing in this case that's exceptional from those in other parks in the province.
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Minister continues to deflect the matter being raised. He hasn't answered the question. My last question to the Minister is this. Given that contracts that are properly tendered, are usually tabled and the public can view those tendered documents, those public documents, will the Minister commit to tabling in this Assembly the maintenance contract and any documentation that relates to the maintenance contract between the government and the McDonald entrepreneur? Will they...
Put it on a motion for adjournment.
Mr. Speaker, there is a section within the legislative process called motions for return, and I would ask the member to respect that.
To Smoky River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the Forum for Young Albertans held yesterday, the opposition forestry critic alleged that 40% of all land that has been harvested for forestry operations has not been reforested. Today is not reforested. To the Minister of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife, is this allegation true?
Mr. Speaker, it's absolutely false.
And in fact, the truth of the matter is that less than 5% of the area that's been forested in Alberta over the last 25 years has not been treated. By treated, I mean not been reforested. And that area was purposely left that way because natural regeneration was the proper course of action. There are some areas in the province where there has been aspen competition that has reduced the conifer regeneration. But today, that's an asset to have aspen. It's certainly a very valuable resource. In addition, Mr. Speaker, I might say that for every conifer cut in this province, we plant 3.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the advent of the new forestry development in Alberta, we'll have a tremendous need for additional seedling stock and nursery stock. What action is the minister taking to see that the needs of the province are adequately addressed?
Mr. Speaker, it's true with the expansion in the forest industry, we're going to need more seedlings, and we've been doing a review of how it would be best to achieve the about 100 million seedlings that we're going to need in the future. We've looked at the opportunities to do it as a government in putting a container facility somewhere in the province, and we've looked also at the private sector. And Mr. Speaker, I might say that we're leaning towards the private sector, and in the course of the next 2 weeks or so, I'll be able to outline clearly the opportunity there will be for Albertans in growing seedlings for this province.
Edmonton Jasper Place.
It's a 38% shortfall, and I can prove it. On Monday, I asked the Premier unsuccessfully if he would denounce the effort of Sunpine Forest Products to get out from under the environmental impact assessment by threatening to withdraw the project. Today, I'd like to ask the Minister of the Environment, who is responsible in this area, why he apparently asked Sunpine to release this superficial and I would say shoddy disclosure statement, which is supposed to be in lieu of an environmental impact assessment, which the company is trying to pass off as being sufficient to meet the need. Why he has failed to this date in his clear responsibility to secure a proper environmental impact assessment on behalf of all of the people of Alberta for this important project.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm not failing. I think I'm doing an adequate job, a more than adequate job. I think I'm doing a pretty good job, as a matter of fact. And nor did I have any discussions relative to the company releasing any kind of a statement whatsoever. What I asked the company to do and what the department has asked the company to do is to do what any company would be asked to do under a normal environmental impact assessment process. And that is, 1, prepare an environmental impact statement. 2, put that statement out for public discussion in an informal sense. 3, do a deficiency review. 4, have all that information brought together so even the honorable member can understand it. And 5, do an adjudication as to the formality of a public hearing or what further steps should be taken relative to the environmental impact assessment process. And that is what is evolving at this particular stage.
Well, before he breaks his arm patting himself on the back, this is not an environmental impact statement, and that's the whole issue. The department has not required the proponent to prepare an environmental impact assessment. I wonder when he's going to get it straight and order Sunpine Forest Products to begin and commence an environmental impact assessment on this project. When?
It's not a matter of me getting it straight, as usual. It's a matter of the honorable member for Jasper Place getting it straight. He's been unable to do that consistently. If there are deficiencies in that document, then through the course of a normal deficiency review, those will be identified, those will be communicated to the company. They will then have to address all those problems to make the project environmentally right. If they don't, the project won't go ahead.
Edmonton Meadowlark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this government is denying its own Natural Resources Conservation Board legislation by failing to insist that the Sunpine wood treatment, that the Sunpine wood treatment project be subjected to a proper environmental impact assessment and a proper review by the Natural Resources Conservation Board. Instead, what we have, Mr. Speaker, is this document called, whatever this is, a project... Why don't you cut them off, Mr. Speaker? Why don't you put...
Edmonton Meadowlark, now the question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Instead, what we have, Mr. Speaker, is something called a project disclosure document, whatever that is, masquerading as an environmental impact assessment, and a few public hearings, which this minister has to admit are nothing more than coffee parties stacked by Sunpine Forest Products Limited. My question is to the Minister of the Environment. Mr. Speaker, what does it take for this minister not only to call for a proper environmental impact assessment, but also to demand and expect a proper Natural Resources Conservation Board review of that project before he ever considers allowing it to proceed?
Well, obviously Chip hasn't been listening to the answers provided to Dale because... Mr. Speaker, all I can do is repeat what I said before, and that is the company is obliged to prepare a statement, an environmental impact statement. Now, the honourable member obviously has an opinion of that statement, and after we have done a deficiency review, we might have the same opinion, and we'll go back to the company and say, look it. There are things in here that are right. There are some things in here that perhaps are wrong. And what you will have to do is to address all the deficiencies. And at that point, we will decide whether the project, and it's not a mandatory project, as I've been able to determine thus far under the NRCB, we will then make the determination as to whether that project will go to the NRCB or some other form of public hearing.
Ralph, Mr. Speaker, it's deficient because it's not an environmental impact assessment. It's a project disclosure document, whatever that is, new terminology. My second question is to the Minister of Tourism. To the Minister of Tourism, in the absence of any kind of proper environmental impact assessment, in the absence of any kind of proper cost-benefit analysis, any kind of economic trade-off analysis, how can he assure the people of Alberta and the people of that area of the province that we're not going to lose a great deal more in potential tourism economic development benefits than we're ever going to gain from this proposed Sunpine Wood Treatment Project?
Mr. Speaker, there's good coordination between our Department of Tourism and the Minister's staff in Environment, and communication does take place, and they do excellent coordination of possible opportunities for tourism projects right throughout this province. I'd like to bring it to all members' attention that we have over 1,000 active files of development proposals within the province right now, and over 328 communities that are very actively promoting tourism in their area. And it's going very, very well, the cooperation between our department and all of the other departments of government, including the Department of Environment.
Calgary Fish Creek, followed by West Yellowhead.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I certainly hope I won't be lumped in with Chip and Dale today, because I...
You mean the Blues? I mean the Minister of Rottenwood.
Mr. Speaker, Albertans who are acquainted with the splendor and the beauty of Mount Sparrowhawk in Canada's country were concerned recently to learn of a possible heli-ski recreational proposal for that mountain. Now, I'm wondering, can the Minister of the Environment advise the Assembly what environmental impact assessment procedures will be put in place to ensure that this province's very high environmental standards will be incorporated in that project should it proceed?
Right.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think it's important, first of all, to understand the process relative to environmental impact assessment, including the new process of referring projects to the NRCB, the Natural Resources Conservation Board, or having projects automatically go to that board. First of all, it's up to the proponent to prepare a document. A document is called an environmental impact assessment statement. It could be a 2-page document, it could be a 30-page document, it could be a pile of documents that high. That document is then submitted to the public for review in an informal sense. The public's comments, as well as the department's comments, as well as the comments of various other departments, are all taken into consideration. And at that point, a determination is made as to whether that project goes to some form of public hearing. The process for public hearing has now been set up as the Natural Resources Conservation Board. There are certain projects that will automatically go because they're of sufficient size, and they will automatically go to that board. There are certain projects that will go to that board on the minister's recommendation. Where we are with respect to the Sparrowhawk project is that we're doing an initial screening of their basic environmental impact assessment statement. That statement that will then have to go out for public input. There will be a deficiency review, and we will decide at that point as to what further steps will be taken.
Mr. Speaker, for those of our constituents who aren't familiar with these new environmental assessment procedures, can the minister indicate to the Assembly approximately when he expects to make his Mount Sparrowhawk decision?
The decision relative to how much further this will go in terms of a formalized public hearing process will probably take about a month to a month and a half to complete by the time we do have the public input stage and the deficiency review.
Thank you. West Yellowhead, followed by Edmonton Avonmore, then Edmonton Goldbar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The poisoning of more than 100 people by contaminated diesel fuel in Hinton remains a mystery after a full year, largely due to the delay caused by the buck passing of government departments trying to decide who should handle this issue. Sadly, when the Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs says that somebody should be inspecting for contaminated fuel, but adds it should be health, environment, or occupational health instead of his department, it seems that this government has not learned from its mistakes. I'd like to ask the Minister of the Environment, since the Minister must surely agree that bureaucratic buck passing is not an acceptable way to deal with environmental health problems, will the Minister share with Albertans his plans to ensure effective responses and any interdepartmental liaison in the future so tragedies like the Hinton poisoning can be avoided?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think that was a good question from the opposition for a change. It was a good question, and it offers us the opportunity to provide the answer in the form of new legislation that is going to be tabled. And certainly this was brought up as the honourable member for Banff Cochrane led a series of public hearings throughout the province on new environmental law. That indeed there needs to be a tougher and better coordination between various departments involved in these matters: occupational health and safety, public health, consumer affairs, environment. And indeed, we're considering now the panel's recommendation that we legislate some kind of a formal arrangement where we can bring these jurisdictions together to deal with problems such as that just described by the honourable member for West Yellowhead.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, Albertans still have more questions than answers about this incident. We don't know how the contamination into the fuel, who is responsible, how much blame lies with the government for mishandling the situation, and whether or not this could happen again. We don't even have a satisfactory explanation for the odd coincidence that the most important evidence, two 50,000-liter tanks, were stolen before they could be analyzed. I'd like to ask the Premier. The Premier must surely agree. The Premier must surely agree that this matter is a matter of public health and public concern, and Albertans deserve an answer to this mystery. Will the Premier undertake to hold a public inquiry into this incident and get to the bottom of it once and for all and not laugh about the situation?
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Environment has already dealt with the matter. The honourable member is now calling for an inquiry. Is that what I understand? Well, I would ask him to provide to the Attorney General or more information along that he would feel would call for an inquiry. Inquiries are very important decisions. They cost tremendous amounts of money, and I know the opposition members like to spend taxpayers' dollars, but I would appreciate the honourable member justifying the request that he's making.
Great. Edmonton Avonmore.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are outraged at the callous disregard of a screaming woman's cry for help because an emergency operator thought it was a domestic dispute. Mr. Speaker, clearly the Solicitor General's poster campaign and directives stressing that family violence is a serious crime is not working. To the Solicitor General, will he now commit to evaluating and making necessary improvements and training available to ensure that effective and sensitive delivery of services to battered women by police and emergency services throughout the province?
Mr. Speaker, I too believe that it is approaching an outrage and a tragedy that a 20-minute time would lapse between the advice of a call and the dispatch of a car to that situation where there were actually screams heard over the telephone. And I am very, very concerned about it. I do not believe, Mr. Speaker, though, that is indicative of a total failure of the program that we have put in place. As a matter of fact, we have ample figures to show that our program is succeeding. This does not take away by any means our concern about what occurred in Calgary at that time, and the operator that took the call initially I don't think can be faulted. That person in fact passed the call on to the Calgary Police Force and indicated that it sounded like a family dispute, which was a perfectly valid comment, incorrect that it was, but it was the right for the person to make the comment and give an opinion as to what was going on there. What was not correct, of course, was the slow response. And I do plan on having a further look into this.
Mr. Speaker, we are further shocked today by the dismissal of charges against a doctor accused of sexually assaulting female patients. In view of statements by Supreme Court Justice Bertha Smith and Beverly McLaughlin that our justice system has a long way to go to overcome gender biases, will the Solicitor General now commit to establishing a task force into the administration of justice to determine the extent of gender bias in Alberta courts as a first step to remedying that bias?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I am a little surprised that the question would be directed to myself rather than the Attorney General, because surely the member from Avonmore knows that the whole matter of the administration of justice is at the administration under the Attorney General of this province. My game is one of cops and robbers. We catch them, and when the justice system is done with them, we keep them. But insofar as the ability of my department to call for any commissions of inquiries, it's an absolute impossibility for me to do.
Edmonton Goldbar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we all know the critical situation facing our healthcare system in Alberta today, and every day there's a new example of how the government's budget policies affect the lives of Albertans. One of the most critical and tragic situations is in pediatric cardiology, where almost 80 Alberta children are waiting for heart surgery, a waiting period that's grown from 3 months to 9 months in just a year. Mr. Speaker, because of these delays, a child's heart gets much weaker and damaged by the time the operation can happen. Hardly an indication here, Mr. Speaker, of a caring or responsible government. My questions to the Minister of Health are, will the Minister respond to the request by the Parent Support Group, heartbeats of Calgary and provide funding to the Calgary Children's Hospital so we can have 2 centers in this province performing open heart surgery on these very vulnerable and helpless children.
Excellent.
Mr. Speaker, there is certainly no question that there is pressure on cardiovascular services in the province, and it was for that reason and because of that pressure that I established the Provincial Advisory Committee on Cardiovascular Surgery in September of 1989. Since then, a new subcommittee of that group has been established on pediatric cardiac surgery, including representation from the Alberta Children's Hospital. And that group has recommended that we increase and provide additional services for pediatric cardiology in September of 90, which was done. And right now we are holding additional resources pending recommendations from that Provincial Advisory Committee. I certainly, while I agree with the honourable member that the parents awaiting the surgery for their children is a very difficult wait, I do not agree with her that a wait is necessarily in every instance a medical emergency. Often people that are waiting on pediatric cardiology services are people who have been told to have the surgery later than right now, and in that sense they're not a true emergency. Nonetheless, there is a pressure, but I'm certainly not prepared to recommend that we establish a new program before that pediatric cardiovascular committee makes recommendations to me.
Mr. Speaker, there is one important thing that can be done in the meantime. Will the minister provide funding for the step-down unit at the University Hospital, which would immediately help to relieve the pressure on pediatric intensive care? Would relieve the situation now?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, as I indicated, we are within the budget of the Department of Health are some reserves that we will let flow when we have the recommendations from the Provincial Advisory Committee on Cardiovascular Surgery. I am not willing, particularly not when we've set up these mechanisms which involve all of the hospitals involved and the medical staff and the administration in looking at the best use of resources. I am certainly not going to come in and make a decision singularly or in isolation from the recommendations of that committee. So I will await those recommendations and believe that they will be in the best interests of Albertans and their health.
Cypress Radcliffe, followed by Edmonton Beverly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question today is to the Minister of Economic Development. And Mr. Speaker, I remember a number of years ago in this legislature when the Honourable Hugh Planche rose and made the announcement of the formation of Alberta Intermodal Services Limited. And he said at that time, when the service got working and the freight got moving, where it assisted Alberta manufacturers in achieving cheaper freight rates, that it would be sold to the public. Mr. Speaker, my question to the minister is, now I understand we're at that state today, or at that position today. Can he assure the Assembly that the sale will be fair and nobody will have any unfair advantage towards purchasing those shares?
Mr. Speaker, I'm delighted that we have the opportunity to reinforce what the honourable member, as he indicated when Alberta Intermodal Services was first established, it was done so on the basis that it would be turned over to the private sector. It was also established on the basis of reducing rates for container traffic. It was also introduced on the basis of injecting greater stability as it related to the exportation of Alberta products. Those goals have been met. In meeting with the Truckers Association, we left them with the assurance that we would privatize Alberta Intermodal Services on the basis that we would have the return come back to the provincial government. I'm happy to leave the honourable member with the assurances that bids are open for everybody to participate
contrary to the misinformation that is coming again from the New Democratic Party, we have a third party that is going to analyze the bids without any interference from ourselves, which is again contrary to the misinformation that consistently comes from the New Democratic Party. We're doing so to make sure that there is no perceived misinformation as it relates to this. We're also going to make sure that all individuals have an opportunity, all those individuals who wish to bid have an opportunity, because bids are open until June 28th. We've got an information package that is available to all of those who do request it also.
Mr. Speaker, my supplementary question, I find it strange that the opposition would be laughing at actions to create cheaper freight rates to this province so that people in the manufacture sector can have a job here. Mr. Speaker, can the minister assure the Assembly that the government will recover its investment in that sale of intermodal?
Mr. Speaker, we're very confident that we can recover our investment, recognizing that that investment has already paid off many full benefits for exporters within the province of Alberta. But we are confident that we will see a return of the $32 million, acknowledging that this company is sitting on some $13 million plus worth of cash assets. In addition to that, there's stationary assets in excess of some $19 million. We've had indications of interest, but notwithstanding that fact, there's nothing binding on our part. In the event that we find that the return is not there, there's nothing binding on our part to sell it, contrary again to the misinformation that comes from the honourable member of Edmonton Kingsway.
Why did he do that? Edmonton Beverly. Order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question this afternoon are to the Premier. Yesterday, representatives of Alberta senior groups finally met with three ministers to let them know how they felt about the cutbacks that was imposed on them at the recent budget. Sort of after the fact consultation, I would call it, Mr. Speaker. The ministers admitted that they had failed to consult with the seniors, and they had finally admitted that the programs had been cut and would not be rolled back. My question is to the Premier. Considering that this government has admitted that it had made a mistake, will the Premier agree to immediately withdraw the program cuts to seniors?
Really? Mr. Speaker, perhaps I should be the one to address this, since the seniors were here at my invitation. First of all, I'd like to take exception with the remark that the member makes, that we never at any time said that we failed to consult, because we did. What we did say was that we could have consulted better, and that we were going to make that a priority. We felt that the budget that has been struck is a good one. It certainly benefits the seniors to the amount of $75 million additional dollars to that program, and it's a good one. I don't know what the member would like us to roll back.
Well, Mr. Speaker, there was no consultation with the seniors, and the minister knows that. We know from a cabinet document, Mr. Speaker, which was received by us a couple of weeks ago, that this government is going even further and is considering mean testing for all senior citizens receiving benefits and from their programs. Now, again to the Premier. Will the Premier promise to abandon the secret plan outlined in the cabinet document and pledge never to launch a secret attack on seniors again?
If this member is suggesting, Mr. Speaker, that we stop considering the development of seniors programs in this province, then I can't make that promise. Certainly we are going to be on top of not only the changing demands that the seniors bring forward, but also our reaction to those demands. And that's going to require some consultation process. And that's going to be ongoing, and that's a pledge that we have made to the seniors of this province.
Calgary Buffalo.
Order. Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Energy, the oil and gas industry wants an explanation why it's being nickeled and dimed by increased fees at a time when the industry is going through serious stress requiring the layoff of hundreds of workers. Effective May 1st, without advance notice or discussion, surface lease rentals for oil and gas wells on Crown lands were increased by 50%, and a new rental of $1,000 per well was imposed in respect of grazing reserves. Now, these can't be considered in isolation, Mr. Speaker, because they're on top of government levies in respect of bonuses, Crown lease rentals, which were increased 40% last year, and heavy royalties. I'm wondering whether the Minister of Energy agrees with these rental increases, and if not, what he's going to do about it.
Good question.
Mr. Speaker, this is a matter that falls under the purview of the Minister of Forestry, Lands and Wildlife, and I'd ask him to respond to the question.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we do reviews annually of our fees and that we charge. In the case of the energy sector, it's on 5-year intervals, and this year the increase was from $240 to $360, which is still a nominal fee. And Mr. Speaker, I believe that through the process that we use to review our fees on an ongoing basis, it was a very fair decision.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Speaker, since the Minister of Energy was on the Treasury Board, which had to approve the increase, he has to take some responsibility. I'm wondering whether he at least knows how much of an increase in fees is being levied on the oil industry at this very difficult time for the industry.
You've been asleep at the switch.
All right. Well, Edmonton Calder. Edmonton Calder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On May 28, 1990, Canada signed the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child with the intention of ratifying the convention in consultation with the provinces and with the territories. Mr. Speaker, I realize that the province this government is in the process of making changes to legislation in order that this province can in fact ratify the convention, and I would like to ask the Minister of Labour, who is responsible for this process, I understand, will the Minister commit to Albertans that the province will ratify the convention on the rights of the child before this session adjourns?
I don't think we have to ratify it, Mr. Speaker, as you are probably aware, there is a great deal of interest in this convention on the rights of the child, and particularly since it's the very first convention ever written by the United Nations that explicitly recognizes both the rights and the responsibilities of parents in ensuring that their children receive all due consideration.
Come on, Andrew. She didn't hear the question.
Mr. Speaker, supplementary to the Minister, I did not hear any commitment at all into signing that convention, and I would ask her once again then, will this government make a commitment to signing the convention before this session adjourns?
Mr. Speaker, of course, as we know, the Prime Minister of Canada chaired the meeting that brought this convention to the stage at which it is. Right. It is now being discussed all across Canada, and particularly here in Alberta, and we will be following the course of its legalities with great interest.
Orders of the day. Might we revert briefly to the introduction of special